when my kids had.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
no, they both have been sick. I think they both have been sick for 2 weeks.
oh, no,
They're healthy, they're fine now.
good. Yeah, that stuff has been going around.
Yeah.
Other.
It definitely has. It's just kind of thing for our house, for sure.
A letter from like 2000.
I was after Christmas, I came back from Phoenix.
It was just like.
And then just
some project in town. The state was financing, I think.
But he said,
There's a letter you had written. Inside
Had it.
from 2000. I'm gonna scan it, maybe I'll talk to you anyway, just to.
Everybody's sick. They need to.
Yeah.
It's unusual is like, don't see a lot of names from 20 years ago that I recognize from like current interactions, you know?
Hopefully on the other side of it.
That's so cute. That's no fun, and it's like.
I read you,
the kids
Yeah, what'd you think of that book?
They just run it.
Yeah, it's
Each
nice.
other, too,
Well, I
so
don't-
it's hard to see.
Mayor hasn't, I know one
We got
big
very
guy spoke,
couple
you know,
of
on
days
this
just
new
because
10-year deal with her.
Mhm.
That hasn't
Well,
been announced yet, but
we done the whole weekend, so let's just keep.
so
going.
it's fascinating and it's very challenging thing too.
Very much so.
No blower.
Yeah.
Right, so
I know.
I don't know if I use this one.
Make hard decisions, make hard choices, and to be brave about it. That's the answer.
Every year.
But yeah, I try to give that to as many people as I can, because it's very thought provoking.
Get that thing up tomorrow.
I'm still working my way through the 10th anniversary edition that came out last year. So,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Hopefully it stays north.
Yeah, let's just escape that last one and stay southwest, didn't it?
Last one stays south.
Yeah.
Getting that good central Iowa, it goes north and south and we stay
That's
good.
right. Let's keep it away.
Carson, can you hear us?
Yep, I gotcha.
Crap, we can't hear him. Carson, give me a head nod. You can hear us?
Oh,
Do you know what's going on with the speaker, Luke?
no.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, this is awkward.
Yeah. Okay. There was some.
Well, Carson can hear us, but
Can you hear me now?
we don't have anything coming through this
Oh.
speaker system.
It's my favorite part.
Hillary, do you know what might be going on with that?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you gotta go off.
Oh, wait a minute. It wouldn't be this, would it?
Like. We weren't.
Hey, Carson, try now.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you out of the computer speaker.
All the switches are green up, I guess.
Hang on. Do we need to change the output?
You have a dog in the fight for the Super Bowl.
Doesn't have anything.
Well, my Cowboys didn't make it.
I don't think so.
Second quarter, I was like, okay, this is-
Yeah.
Carson, how about now?
Any better?
Ah, you're still coming out of the laptop.
Here's the whole thing, so I didn't.
Well,
know the offensive line. So bad.
Yeah.
And so-
Hey, Luke.
Running around Canada the whole thing. Never got.
do you have any idea why the speakers might not be functioning?
We're gonna capitalize or,
Because I know we're gonna have people on the Zoom, and if they got the speakers in this thing are not strong.
we're gonna do.
We're gonna put a microphone by the.
No, you're gonna use this.
You're gonna use this thing.
No.
Well, I'm gonna use it.
You're gonna use it. Well. And then audio will come out of it at least, so.
Okay.
That'll get audio. And then
It should be more robust than this.
Yeah.
Use this instead or?
Plug into the other. Are you getting wrong?
Yeah, can you plug into that one?
Does that have micro in it?
That's in the lead there. Yeah.
No.
None of those working on council. That works. Let's do this. We'll pivot again here. I will.
At least the monitors are working.
3 minutes, no pressure.
Put the microphone, but I was.
Hillary, can you log into the Zoom? Yeah. And we'll put the owl through your computer. It'll stretch there.
Man, my head's gonna look huge on that thing.
Yeah.
Backwards.
Hey Elliot, this is Andrew. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Great. Maybe Carson's got microphone issues. Carson, give me another audio test, please.
Yeah, I tested. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a little better. We're gonna try and get this owl speaker plugged in, and
Hold on. Let me try one other thing here.
I think we can hear you if we
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah,
silent.
we're just it's not coming through the city PA stuff. So just give us a moment. We'll get some stuff switched over and
Okay.
you're gonna have to end up muting that and. otherwise No,
We don't know what that is, George.
This goes down in the night.
we don't, like, I got it set
Go.
to 70 right now.
And it won't warm up.
Oh, just the.
Everything is a dose.
Yeah, something's wrong with that.
Dose good.
I'm cold.
Yeah.
The only run you can
It's
put an hour.
chilly.
Of course, it's gotta update Hillary's Zoom.
It's kind of a time. What about right now? That means it was like it would be a home thing. He did it. Part of it.
Oh, you across the creek somewhere, right?
Spot.
No, actually, it's probably, maybe it's come down. Hole number 5 on the reeds. Around the corner, 6 on the bale. And then connection.
Morgan's right there.
Oh.
You're gonna have that lock that comes up by the sign machine.
All right, folks on the Zoom, I'm gonna mute the only speaker you got right now. Should have you back in a sec.
So I wonder if they,
There's something.
they made this like a put notes into the plan there.
Must be that thing. Oh, wait, no.
Those are really things,
Okay, can people hear us still?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, sound
Why
good.
is the audio not coming from the owl? Seriously.
Does it-
Saw
does it,
Carson say
like, turn
yes,
up?
and it sounded like Elizabeth faintly.
From the owl?
No, from somewhere.
No, it was coming from Hillary's thing. Audio.
This is a vault.
Here we go. Hold on. Select microphone. Okay, somebody on Zoom say something.
Oh, it sounds like an owl. There we go. No, but I just muted that on the laptop. Carson, can you hear us?
Yep.
Okay, all right, we did it. Just speak up, I guess, and everything's going through Hillary's laptop.
Well, the speaker and the microphone is the owl.
I guess,
Not the phone.
yes.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay,
so I will speak at a normal volume.
I can probably move.
No, that thing's pretty good at picking stuff up.
I guess if somebody online can't text allowed to speak out.
Don't move your laptop.
Call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of February 10th, 2025. The time is 5:48 p.m. Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Eaton,
Here.
Hinders, Thompson,
Here.
Steiger,
Here.
Samuelson,
Here.
Forst,
Here.
Reginator.
Here. Item number 3 is the approval of tonight's agenda. Any changes to this evening's agenda? Hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda.
Samuelson motion.
Dean second.
Steiger second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item number 4 is the approval of the January 13th, 2025 minutes. Any changes to those minutes? Hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion and a second to approve the January 13th, 2025 minutes.
Dean motion.
Samuelson will second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'd like to welcome any guests that have joined us here in person or on the Zoom tonight. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on an item that is not on tonight's agenda? Hearing nothing, we'll move on to our first substantive item. Item number 6 is a request from R&J Weiss Holding Company 12 LLC for approval of the final plat of Marketplace at Echo Valley Plat 5. Elliot, would you brief us on this item, please?
Yep, and I neglected to put an item in my presentation for this final plat, so I'm just gonna talk about these two things together
Okay.
because they're concurrent. We'll motion separately for them.
Okay.
I'm just gonna talk about them both right now. So this substantive item deals with the site plan, following it on the agenda. Basically, we had to get a final plat done for the lot that Pizza Ranch is looking to locate on. Essentially, the parcel that they want to build on is a remnant from prior plats. First for 1908 draft house, and then the townhome development to the north. Just kind of left this piece of land as an outlot. We need to do a final plat in order to make it a buildable lot of record. So no parcel lines are changing with this. It's simply acknowledging this as a buildable lot. And that's the I guess that's it for Marketplace at Echo Valley Plat 5. Let's actually go ahead and wrap that
Okay.
item up, then we'll move on to the site plan.
Sure. Are there any representatives or, is the applicant or any representative of the applicant here and would like to speak on item number 6? Any questions, or consideration from the commission? Hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion to approve the final plat of Marketplace at Echo Valley Plat 5.
Steiger motion.
Second,
Force a second.
Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Steiger,
Aye.
Samuelson,
Aye.
Forst,
Aye.
Eden,
Aye.
Hinders, oh, he's gone, sorry, Thompson,
Aye.
Reginator.
Aye. Thanks, everyone. And then item number 7 is a request from R&J Weiss Holding Company for approval of the site plan on that same location. Elliot, take it away.
Yep, so this is the meat of this pair of agenda items. The request is for approval of the site plan for Pizza Ranch. It's a pretty self-explanatory site plan for the most part. Borders 1908 draft house to the north, and then it's south of the townhome development, which it shares drive access with. That's good from I think from a fire access standpoint, just to have 2 access points on the lot without having additional driveways onto Marketplace Drive itself. The footprint of the building is right here in the middle of the site. Parking on the northwest and south side. There's a pretty substantial drainage facility that is shared with the lot to the north. Takes up a good portion of the eastern part of the lot. And then anybody who's been to 1908 relatively recently would notice the cart path that's been installed along the berm east of that basin. So the only non, or I guess thing worth pointing out related to the site plan is, you guys remember I pointed out at the last meeting that I want to be deliberate about listing any waivers that need to be made with the site plan. The only one that came up with this was just the parking space count. If you read my summary of that, it's a rather clinical analysis of parking regulations. Essentially, we figured they came out to just 3, I think, stalls shy of what would normally be required, which we think is an acceptable margin of differentiation. So noting that waiver, everything else is compliant with the zoning ordinance. I'm happy to answer any questions for staff. Otherwise, we've got a couple folks, I think, on behalf of the project joining us tonight.
Would the applicant or the applicant's representative like to speak on item number 7?
This is Tom Berkman with Schiff. I'm here to answer any questions that may come up, but Elliot did a very good job of summarizing the project.
Thanks for being here, Tom.
Thank you.
Any questions from the commission or deliberation on this item?
Just one for staff. I guess it's a private drive to the north.
Yes.
Okay, where everybody's good with that. That's the only access it looks like out of that area, that townhome area. Well, to the north end of the south, because before we approved that townhome area, was that just dead ending? Is that what that was gonna do before this park came along?
I don't have that site plan in front of me, but I think it was contemplated that that would punch through to the south and be a shared access with whatever developed here.
And we're cool with probably because it's just 2 private drives connecting. Okay.
Yep.
Other questions or further deliberation from the commission?
One question may not be related to this, but when 1908 was built, was there any variance given for parking spaces for that location? Because I noticed quite a bit of parking on the streets on the weekends when they're busy.
Yeah, so Luke, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. I think that one of the goals with the development of that site was to have parking on the street.
Okay.
The idea
that's
being
planned.
they could fit more building on the site and take up less land with that site plan if we allowed them to count street parking spaces towards the allotment.
I can't recall specifically if we did do a waiver or not, but I do recall when we were doing the marketplace drive study and talking about width and everything. We knew it was gonna be limited to a 2-lane road, but we wanted to try to help control speeds down, and we didn't want people using it as a cut through to get to Highway 28 and everything.
Right.
So the idea being that if you put cars there and have people park there, that would maybe make people pay a little more attention, and kind of narrow things up a little bit. So from that regard, I think the on-street was intentional.
So I shouldn't be cutting through to get.
I'm not saying you shouldn't, I'm just saying that was thought of when we.
No, the only reason I ask is we do Pizza Ranch a lot in the different locations and they get pretty busy as well. So parking may become a challenging area, but excited for this project.
Any other questions or deliberation from the commission? Hearing nothing, I would entertain a motion and a second to approve the site plan of Pizza Ranch.
Motion.
Second.
Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Samuelson,
Aye.
Forst,
Aye.
Eaton,
Aye.
Thompson,
Aye.
Iker.
Aye.
Reginator.
Aye. Thanks, everyone. Item number 8 is the public hearing and recommendation on an amendment to the Orchard Hills Planned Unit Development related to high-density residential and neighborhood commercial uses in PUD land use parcel 1. since this is a public hearing, we'll open that at 5:58 PM. Elliot, would you brief us on this item, please?
Yep, so if basically everything in this staff report looks familiar aside from the date and the exhibit, you are not going crazy. Essentially, the applicants decided they wanted to go with a different layout on the site. The content of the site is more or less the same. They're still contemplating a 3-story building, I believe, with 2 fewer units. So it was going to be 40 in the 3-story building and then 2 5-unit cottage buildings. So that would be a 50 unit total. My understanding now is they're going to have 48 units. And they simply wanted to rearrange the site in a way that served the residents better. So the main staff concern from this is we wanted to have buildings broadly fronting Orchard Hills Drive and have the parking somewhere behind the structures, and they're still doing that here. So we're just bringing it back because in the initial review by P&Z, we specifically are going to be putting this concept in the PUD. So we didn't want to have the old concept in there and then have them bring a site plan that didn't match. So that's why this is coming back. Otherwise, I've got nothing else to add. Happy to answer any questions. And I know we've got Barry and Nick with WODA companies on the Zoom as well.
Would the applicant or the applicant's representative like to speak on item 8?
Well, thank you very much. Yes, just to kind of reiterate what Elliot just said, we're working with kind of an odd shape and trying to maximize the area that we have to make it the best living environment for the residents. We're still working, actually, maybe the dog park might slide over closer to the buildings at this point, but want to maintain the road frontage at Orchard Hills, but again, just try to make it a more usable site plan for our future residents. And when I broached this to Elliot, he was insistent, and I couldn't agree more that it needed to come back to this body for you to take a look at it, especially if it goes to city council and you folks haven't seen this yet or had a chance to make a comment on it. So that's why we're here tonight.
Great, thanks, Barry. Would any members of the public like to make a comment on item number 8? Any questions from the commission before we close the public hearing and start our deliberation? I have one small question. Is that bright green drawing for trash?
Yes, I believe so. Yep.
Hearing no other questions from the commission, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:01 PM. And commissioners, we can now deliberate on this item. Remember what it's like before that this option.
We did not have any public comment made on this. We had some questions, basically just asking what the difference between the two was,
Sure.
but no, officially no comment on this item.
Any other deliberation from the commission? Hearing nothing, I would entertain a motion or a recommendation to approve this amendment for the Orchard Hills Plan Unit Development uses in PUD land use parcel 1.
Forrestal motion.
Tiger second.
Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Forrest,
Aye.
Eaton,
Aye.
Thompson,
Aye.
Tiger,
Aye.
Samuelson,
Aye.
Reginator.
Aye. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Commission.
Thanks, Barry. Item number 9 is a public hearing and recommendation on an amendment to the Maple Heights Plan Unit Development. We'll open the public hearing at 6:03 p.m. Elliot, would you brief us on this item, please?
I'm gonna let Luke take this one, actually.
Yes, and I'll be happy to. And we do have the applicants online as well, so if they wanna hop in at some point and talk about some of this stuff. And there's a few items where I think, maybe they wanna talk about their concept a little bit more. But essentially what this does is Maple Heights PUD is that property, 120 acres that was bought up around the pond. That's kind of northwest of Lake Colchester off of 50th. Elliot's got the vicinity map up there on the screen. And that PUD was kind of a mixed use PUD. There's some commercial that fronts 50th, and then a variety of residential uses, and then some other commercial parcels kind of near the park area. And the initial concept of that was on the far, and you can go farther in that. I think at the very bottom is the original PUD. If you want to jump to their original exhibit map. But the original west side of that was again commercial fronting 50th, and then apologies, that's sideways. So south on that map is a parcel that's was primarily single family. The idea that'd be like all alley loaded product. Maybe some townhomes that flank the north and south of everything, and then more traditional single family to the east of it, so to the east of the pond. And then there's some apartment ground in there and everything. But this amendment's really focused on that western parcel, because that's where they'll begin their development. Since this concept was originally proposed, they've done some more digging into the actual development of the site, done some market research on their own, looked at what their products are doing, where they develop things. So they're asking for some changes related to this. And essentially what this does right now is the west side of it, residential, is called parcel B. And we've determined that the best way to handle this is to split it into B1 and B2. So if you want to go back to the original one, the proposed one, Elliot, all the way up, there we go. So B1 is kind of that north side phase. That's where they've indicated they want to start. That would include some of the single family alley loaded product. Though we're kind of calling it like a villa townhome. The idea would be that typically with an alley loaded, you go public street, alley, public street. So each unit has access onto the alley for like a garage or something, and then public street access out their front door. These would have alley loaded access to garage, but then out the front door would be like a public greenway, like a sidewalk greenway between the houses. So it wouldn't be a public street, right, alley set up throughout the whole thing. So most of the streets in there would be private. The kind of ones on the perimeter would be public. Again, single family units in the majority of B1, the units to the north and to the kind of far east end of that where it kind of tails off, are some opportunities for some more traditional townhome type products, would be located in that. The other thing with, well, let me go to parcel B2 first. B2 is more of a traditional townhome parcel, think like the brownstones at Legacy. Again, alley loaded access to the rear of the buildings. Some of the buildings would have public street frontage. Some of them would front out onto common open space ground with walking paths and such like that. And then the other change with this west end is the kind of south and around that B2 parcel becomes parcel F. And parcel F from a user standpoint was more your traditional 50, 60 foot lot, single family home with an attached garage that kind of has access to the street instead of an alley access. That's similar to what's on the east side of the development in parcel F. We did also add into parcel F the ability to do some duplexes. You'll see in this ghosted concept, there's a bunch of narrow lots on the far east side. Those are potential duplex lots. So parcel F can be single family and duplex. So that's it for the use side of it in those different parcels. The other big requests of this are regarding garages. So right now, our code requires a single family car to have a 2-car garage. It's just, you have to have that. You can't build anything without it. And then townhomes has to have a single car garage minimum. They are asking to do unit types that would be a 0-car garage, 1 or 2-car product, that could all be mixed through the same area. So, you might have a couple, no-car homes built next to each other and then a 2-car garage home, and let them kind of, fit those throughout the neighborhood as the development kind of sees fit and as the product demands. We did add some language into the PUD that talked about, no more than 3 units that have no garage be adjacent to one another. We didn't want a whole street to end up being these smaller single family units. So we did try to rein that in a little bit on the single family. And then also on the townhomes, I believe we ended up with they can do single or double, which matches what our townhome requirement would typically be. So they weren't necessarily proposing a no-car garage scenario with townhomes, mainly in that single family area within parcel B1 is where they'd be looking, as well as I think we included that for parcel F as well. So
Luke,
The
just to clarify there,
sure.
the parcel B1 is the only parcel on this where we're asking for the option to do no garage on a select few of the homes in there.
Okay.
The single family homes, if I remember right. So when he says no
Now-
car, no garage, I didn't want anybody to panic and think it was everywhere. It's a limited amount of those homes in B1. And Luke, do you remember, did we cap it at 25%?
We didn't cap the percentage, but we capped the number in a row.
Okay.
So,
And
oh,
so
yeah, you're right. Minimum of 75% of units must have a garage. I had it wrong
okay.
in my.
So I think there, we wanted to just try some new product there, some single level living that really touches on the affordable side of it, but not get, again, we aren't trying to scare anybody and get overly carried away with that, but just offer a little bit different product in there. And we also did cap, so, and Luke, you said this, but we can't put more than 3 of those together. And so we're not intending to put them all side by side and have it feel like a trailer park or anything. It really is, they're nice homes and they're intertwined with the homes with the garage on that B1 parcel. And again, 50% of that is townhomes in that B1 and it doesn't apply. It's really, about half of that where we could put just a few of those units in there.
Yep.
So.
And then the other thing with garages on the F, I was incorrect. I'm sorry, I said 0. It's a 1 or 2-car garages in parcel F. So that would be change from standard code, which would have required 2-car garages in all of those. So they're asking for a reduction of 1 in that area. And then the last thing that the PUD does is right now it's removing some language about limitations on ADUs regarding owner occupancy of a lot. So an ADU is an accessory dwelling unit. The code had previously said that an ADU is only allowed when an owner was the occupant of the main house, and then they could create an accessory dwelling unit and rent it out or use it for family or what have you. There was some concern from the property owner standpoint of the reality of that not likely being the case, right? People buy houses and sell houses, or people move into a starter home and then maybe decide to keep that home as an investment property. And then if they had an ADU, then we've created a weird situation. I agree with this from a city enforcement standpoint. Like, we're not likely going to go into an ADU scenario where both units are being rented and force somebody to move out, right? Like, that's not a good look for the city. We shouldn't put ourselves into that spot anyway. So when we've talked through this with them and Jameis, who you heard talking earlier, if he wants to expound on his side of things was, they're willing to do ADUs. We don't have any in town. We think it's a interesting concept to allow to happen somewhere and would be a good place for the city to try it out. But at the same time, under the current regulations, they weren't willing to take the risk to go ahead and build those if that were the case. So there's a discussion point of, do we want to remove some of these owner occupied requirements and see if ADUs work and see how it is? And again, it's limited to that B1 area. Primarily it's going to be like, you're not going to have ADUs in a townhome scenario. It's primarily going to be a single family B1 or an F unit potentially. But even then with an attached garage, you're not likely to build a separate unit on top of that. Because we do require it to be above a garage. So that's an option. I think it's up for discussion. Jameis and the Lone Tree folks can talk more on that from their side of stuff. From a staff perspective, we think it'd be good to have a place where it could happen so we can see if it's something that would be maybe appropriate for other parts of the city or other projects in the future. So it seems like it may be a minimal risk scenario to give that type of unit a try. So with that, I think I've covered everything. Happy to answer any other.
Can I just add to that, Luke?
Sure, go ahead.
I think maybe it would be helpful to know, like, this was a really collaborative discussion between Luke and us on the developer side. And to his point, I think the city has had when we initially approved this interest in trying out a few ADUs. And in the PUD document, they have to be above the garage. And so they're really limited to that B1 parcel. So there's actually, maybe 35 homes that have a potential of having those ADUs. And then he asked us, are we okay and will we put them in? And then we told him if we take off that restriction, we would take the chance on putting a few of those in. If with the restriction, I think it probably limits our buying pool if they're restricted that way. And we would opt as the developers probably just not to build them at all. And so really, I just want you to know, we're not pushing hard and saying, hey, please give us this. We'd like to try them in the area. I think Luke said, you guys are interested, at least staff's interested in trying on the area. So that was and Luke, tell me if I'm putting words in your mouth, but
I think you're right on. It's really trying to find the sweet spot that works for you guys on the development side and that the city could be comfortable with. And really, we have a staff opinion, but it's you guys, a planning commission, making a recommendation to council, and then ultimately council making that decision of, is that something the city wants to do? So we as staff would say, hey, we think it's a good idea to try. That's the language that would need to happen on the developer side to make it happen. Now it's kind of your guys' court on what do you think and what do you want your recommendation to be?
Any other comments for us, Jameis, before we move to the public and the P&Z questions?
No, just happy to field any questions.
Great, thank you so much. Would any members of the public like to make a comment on item number 9? Any P&Z questions before we close the public hearing and start deliberation?
I have one question for Jameis, and this might be more for Luke. But so with townhomes that don't have a garage, we typically go a wider street with designated parking, not parallel parking, but actually parking that you can pull in. I think about the townhomes in the big circle there, on the north side, how there's designated parking. Are we going to do that with these? If there's not going to be a garage, are we going to then widen the roads and give designated parking so that we're just not congesting the streets?
So the public streets on B1, kind of that, and Elliot, I don't know if you can kind of highlight where the public roads are in on that. But basically along B1, where he's drawn along the west side, and then that kind of curvilinear road on the south side are all public roads. and which would allow public street parking. There would be units that only had access to an alley, that would not have public parking. We would, I believe we have a dimension in here of 25-foot separation. Basically, what we would do in that scenario, whether it was a no-car garage or a so ever many car garage, there'd be a parking requirement that needs to be met. Typically in a house that's met via the garage spaces themselves, and then the driveway parking is like extra parking that's not required by code, but is there. And in this scenario with the no car garage, they still have to provide parking to meet code, so I'm assuming what they would do is put some kind of driveway pad up to that building, or, you know, something off street that would do that. From the concepts they showed me, that's what they've done other places, but James, you could talk more about that if you wanted.
Yeah, I agree. We'd meet the parking requirement, but Luke, I believe, and I don't know if we wrote it specifically this way, but the intention is none of the townhome product in B1 would have they would all the townhome product in B1 would have at least a one-car garage. The no car garage only applies to in B1, the western side of it, the single family group right there.
Yeah.
And not the town.
For the purposes of the PUD and our just nomenclature in Norwalk, we call it a one family townhome, which basically means a house.
I see.
On a
I
small, but yeah, so the traditional kind of single family units, those can have no garage, but if you have any units where they're attached, like a traditional townhome would be, those have to have a minimum of one car garage.
Yeah, all the attached have at minimum one car garage. That's correct. Andrew, did that answer your question?
Yep, it did. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Should one of the parcel Fs be marked differently? Since there are two parcel Fs.
You could, but
I'm
it's
just
not.
thinking from a what happens after this plat,
Mhm.
just from a title perspective.
No, she's thinking for her legalese and she's gonna do it, or not for us. But the same rules apply to each parcel as far as we're concerned, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so and legislatively, the name parcel F doesn't really mean much. It just means that there's a block of rules within the PUD that apply to that area.
The only reason you want it would be so parcel F allows the single family and the duplexes. Right now, they're showing just one row of duplexes on the far east end of the development, but technically it's allowed anywhere in parcel F. So right now, their parcel F piece in the west side, they're not showing duplexes. They could, via zoning, come back and decide to add some duplexes in there. From a staff perspective, I don't have an issue with that. I think mix of housing type in a neighborhood creates diversity and creates interest in the neighborhood that we typically miss in suburban development. So I don't have the concern of that quote unquote risk of that happening. But if you were worried about that, then you would want to, we could go back and specifically say F1 is the west side and that is only single family, and F2 is the east side and that has the duplex and single family. And we can address that way.
It's a self-serving question. All right, any other questions from the commission?
For staff, so the way that the PUD is currently written is that we have to have owner occupied to have an ADU on the property.
Correct.
And are you looking for us to comment on that now or probably after we close the public hearing?
Either or, usually deliberation after public hearing.
Okay.
Any other questions from the commissioners on Zoom? Hearing nothing, we'll close the public hearing at 6:22 p.m. And now we can deliberate, commissioners.
Elizabeth left at 6:21.
I really like the concept of, getting some variety, the alley loaded, the additional green space, the zero garages. I really like you know, what Liberty is putting forward here with this development.
I guess I like the freedom that they have, like you said, to do potential townhomes, duplexes versus single family in different areas and get some of that mixed density that we've been striving for. I especially like the fact that the garage requirements are sometimes non-existent. I guess I wish we had more of that.
Can I make a comment on that real quick? I think one of the reasons that we encourage that from a staff level, for maybe commissioners who haven't heard us talk about this, is we feel like it should be a homeowner's right to decide if they want to have a garage or not. Just as an example, the house where I live didn't originally have a garage. It was affordable to people that maybe it wouldn't be today, now that it has a 2-car garage, giving somebody the opportunity to gain entry into private property ownership and then grow that property. We see immense value in that. So just wanted to reiterate that point.
I'll add to that. So one of my coworkers, he has a house, an older house that he bought up kind of on the northeast side of Des Moines. He's gonna put a garage in. Just the concrete for his 2-car garage was like 30K. Right? And so I guess you start thinking about, and that's just that. So I don't know, his garage is gonna be a $75,000 garage by the time it's all said and done. Well, just to add a 2-car garage. So I guess same thing. If you take I don't know what the hell they're going starter homes for these days, 250, 300, and you
If
take
you're
that,
lucky.
if you take that 75, 80K out of that, that makes that much more affordable for somebody looking to get into a house. I guess I applaud any efforts that we can do to make home ownership. Over time, there's always been one thing that has determined your wealth long-term in the American society, and it's been home ownership. That is like the number one step that an individual can take to start to build that kind of wealth. And if we can get more people into that, we need to be doing more that we can from the zoning standpoint to encourage that. I guess on the ADUs, I think it's gonna be really hard to legislate owner occupied portions of that. So I guess I'm okay with us waiving that. I get the thought and I get the desire to have somebody own a property that, hey, if there's an issue now, they gotta call somebody. But I guess how many rental properties we have around town now that are owned by out-of-town entities that they don't have somebody that can immediately be there. I know there's houses that are being built that are just strictly being built for rentals, right? That's kind of a thing these days. And so they don't have a property manager that is on site that can come and fix things immediately. So I guess I don't know why we would impose that type of restriction on these potential properties.
We did, to that point, get a complaint within the last 2 weeks from a resident that lives in a new development area that bought the house and is disappointed that residents are renting and that all the other houses being built near them are rentals. Now, you know, in that regard, that's someone expressing their displeasure with that scenario. But the point being is that's a thing that exists right now with $350,000 single family
If we
homes.
could ban corporate ownership of homes, that'd be a great thing, but I don't know that that's the city of
A lot
Norwalk
that goes into it.
way to get involved, right?
Well, and for
It's hard for folks
purposes
to
of
get loans too, so you gotta do something if you're building them. You gotta generate revenue.
Again, I think it's a great option. If somebody wants to, if there's an owner that can, we allow them to build an ADU, or you can buy a house that has an ADU that's already built, that you can come in and you can go, I've got $1,200 a month of income based upon my ADU that I've got. That makes that housing more affordable for somebody to be able to potentially get into. But again, I think the case was brought up that if somebody builds that or buys that and builds an ADU and they want to upgrade, and so they build a bigger home somewhere else, I don't know that we can say, hey, you gotta sell that. You cannot lease that ADU and lease that house if you want to.
Well, and I think ADUs are gonna become used for things other than rental income, right? Like we have an aging population where parents are going to want to live with their children, and I think ADUs are a great way for that to happen in a more affordable way too, and keep people out of institutions or, you know, assisted living versus staying in a home. Is something that's going to become even more important as we, you know, as the population ages. So I think, I agree, I like that we've limited it to see how it goes. We're not just giving carte blanche to the whole, you know, section of a parcel, so I do like that limitation. But again, it's something I'm excited about trying and seeing how it goes, with all the other different things that we're trying to do in this. Evening. Any other deliberation from the commission?
If we want to change that language, do we need to recommend you change that language?
The
before it's sent to
PUD
council?
currently has that language removed.
That's incorporated.
So if you recommend what's in the packet before you, it would be affirmative to that.
Do we just make a? Can I just make a motion till we change that language before we get through the actual PUD approval? Or what's the proper way? Or do we just make the motion to change that language and see what happens there? Or do we try to amend it via a separate motion?
So the way I've written the amendment right now in the PUD does not include the language of owner occupied.
Yeah, I was just looking at it.
So it includes some language about there being a deed restriction placed on it. Saying that you can't sell the ADU separate from the main building, which I think we want to keep. But
Is that the old PUD I'm looking at? Because I guess if you go down
Yeah.
to page 22.
yeah, that's the old PUD.
Okay,
So the new
alright.
PUD is page,
Sorry.
the amendment is page, no, you're good, page 2 through 2 through 8, it looks like.
Okay.
So
Never mind.
it's those first pages, yeah. So yeah, so you could, if you want to go forward without that
There we
ADU
go.
requirement of owner occupied, just recommend as it is.
Okay, hearing nothing additional from the commission, I would entertain a motion, or excuse me, we would recommend the approval of the amendment to the Maple Heights planned unit development.
Sam, so much.
Eaton second.
Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Eaton,
Aye.
Steiger.
Aye.
Samuelson,
Aye.
Forrest,
Aye.
Reagan.
Aye. Thanks, everyone. George, any update for us tonight?
No. I think if people don't pay attention to council, I'll step in. This is the council, so there's a franchise fee being discussed right now in Norwalk. It is basically, right now, everybody pays a 1% extra sales tax on their utility bills. That pool, that penny goes into all the pennies with everybody else in Warren County, and then it gets distributed back throughout Warren County. And I believe the number that was thrown around at council was 20, we get 20 cents on the dollar basically of that.
Approximately, yep.
And so, in these budget times when we're being restricted on property use values, Norwalk is looking to implement a franchise fee of 1%. Which basically would replace that local option sales tax, and we would get 100% back of that tax. So it's a tax benefit to Norwalk. I know it's all over Facebook. It was an issue at council last Thursday. It's just one of those things, right? As it's proposed now, it's essentially a tax swap that benefits Norwalk to go to the franchise fee. So if anybody at home is listening, which nobody is.
So no new tax.
So the whole bottom line is, it's not necessarily, it's not a new tax. It's just a different way of taxing that ends up benefiting the city of Norwalk overall.
You get 80 cents.
The only thing that would be different on that would be churches and schools.
They do not pay that tax though, right?
And they will pay the utility.
Okay, they will pay the
Yeah.
utility tax.
And they're okay with it.
Yeah,
my
they're
understanding. And it can't be that much because the overall amount's $100,000.
Yeah.
So I didn't go into detail to figure out what that would be, but it can't be that much money, because 100,000 is for
A year.
So, yeah, a year.
A year of that. So it's a way of collecting more money for the. Currently, as it's written, it is a way for the city of Norwalk to collect more funds from doing pretty much the exact same thing that is out there now.
Yeah.
There's a potential that franchise fee, there's a percentage limit on that, but what is being discussed right now is a 1% franchise fee, which would be the same thing.
So what people really need to do is contact their legislators and say, was it House File 718?
718.
I haven't memorized, that's scary. And then
We all do.
each year, because I thought, well, maybe this, give it up one year and then you're made whole the next year. It's not that way, it just keeps getting tighter.
It's
So
compounded.
this is just the start. So if they don't adjust it or make any changes, it's gonna get worse. And we'll feel it. And there'll be an urge to maybe want to increase that, which we, really don't. Really want. I'm speaking for myself, we really don't want to, but at the same time, if there's no choice,
At some point, you have to decide between service cuts or
Yeah.
finding other
Yeah.
revenue.
yeah, you get-
And
On that subject, if anybody's interested, there's a business record breakfast on Thursday morning with individuals from the Iowa Taxpayer Association, some city managers are there. A handful of other kind of elected officials and people that, from the city standpoint, talking about what kind of impacts these house files are having on the cities. And so it'll be, I think it'll be probably one of the more lively discussions on those business record breakfasts that I will probably ever attend, so.
I think we're ideally, we'd be based on the current legislation, we should just grow at 3%.
Yeah, because you can actually almost get penalized if you grow more than
Yeah, if
3%,
you
right?
grow, you're gonna be penalized.
we had discussions, like what would it look like if we capped our residential apartments, right? We did 305 last year. If we can only grow at 3%, that ends up being like 105 houses a year. So we could just tell the builder community, number
Close the
105, we're done. Business is closed.
We can't be close.
We can't accept more.
Lots of things, at a certain point in time, you don't expect linear growth into a fire department or public safety or anything else, right? But at a certain point in time, we're gonna have the same fire department that we have now, when we could potentially have 50% more residents.
Yep.
And I think that's the thing that people don't understand, is that the impact of these is over the long term, that's where we're gonna end up.
Yep.
And so when you complain that the ambulance takes longer to get to your house, or the fire department doesn't show up right away, or the police don't show up when you need them, there's gonna be a reason why.
And as a city staff person, running a city department, we want to provide the best service we can as efficiently as we can. And at some point in time, though, less is less. And we can't do that. I don't think that there's a single person that works for the city that doesn't want to give our residents the best service and best experience we can. And it's frustrating when we feel like we're restricted in our ability to do that.
And the only other way that you can do that from a city, from your department standpoint, is permit fees go up. Permit fees for decks, for houses, for commercial construction. That's the only other way you can generate revenue that is potentially can offset some of these cuts. So, all right, soapbox over.
No, thank you for bringing that up.
I think it's one of those things that I'm the guy that pays attention to watches every council meeting. I don't know that the rest of this crew does, but it's just one of those things that it's really impacting what the city's ability to do in the future is gonna be. And from every indication that we've got, at least from what Jason said at council on Thursday, it's gonna continue to be this way, and it's not gonna get any, but it's gonna get worse before it gets better, so. I digress.
No, not at all. Luke, any update for us tonight?
Permits last month, we had 9 house permits, which is a little down for January, but also we had a huge influx in December, so we expect our spring permits to be a little weird this year. And then we gave a temp CO to Sportsplex last week, so good to start getting them opening. You probably saw that Cooper's was open on Wednesday of last week, so if you've not gotten a chance to go there, check it out. I'm sure they're great. I've not gone yet.
I've been there, it's excellent.
Good.
Yeah.
One endorsement,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Great. Elliot, any update for us?
I do have agenda items for next 2 weeks from now, so let me know if there's any scheduling issues, but otherwise we'll just proceed.
Our next meeting will be February 24th, 2025 at 5:45 PM. I will now entertain a motion and a second to adjourn.
Zero so much.
Stagger,
All in favor?
second.
Aye, we're adjourned at 6:37 PM. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the Zoom, everyone.